Hey everybody, this is Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and welcome to my first ever playthrough video with Out of the Park 19. And I'm going to start off just doing, continuing on with that Phillies playthrough I was doing in 18 for a few reasons. The more I thought about it, I'm really I've gotten attached to the team, and there's some guys here who I drafted or picked up on waiver wire or some other move that I really want to see how they develop. So I'm kind of invested in it, and I would hate to give up on the team before I really had some success. So last year we finished right at 500 after making the playoffs the year before and going all the way to the National League Championship. And I just feel like I got some unfinished business. And at least for maybe a season or two, or if we have some success, I'd like to keep playing, and hopefully that'll be good with you guys. And another reason was I know that we're still a week or so away from the actual majors starting, and I know some rosters haven't been finalized, and I don't want to get too far along into a playthrough until I like a new team playthrough until I got the rosters are set a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to go with for now, and hopefully you guys who watch some of my 18 videos, you'll be rooting for my team too, and you might have gotten invested a little bit in some of the guys that are coming up on my team, and it should be hopefully fun if we make the playoffs next year and go all the way for once. But this video, I just want to give try to keep it brief history of what I've done since I've been in this playthrough. And I started, I think it was right now it's the off season, it's November of 2029. The first playthrough episode I did was the off season of 2027. So I've done two seasons so far of the playthrough. And why I started so late, I just thought it would be kind of neat to see how some of the league developed, what teams became like powerhouses in the last, in 10 years on, and how some of these stars of today, how their careers played out. For instance, Justin Bellinger, who I think is in the minor league system right now, but he turned into a really dominant offensive player. Carlos Correa had a good career. Mike Trout finished with well over 500. Well, he's still playing, but he's at over 500 home runs, pushing close to 3,000 hits, but he's not quite there yet. Some other players like that have done what you expected them to do, and there's been a few surprises. But we're at the point now where the league has developed some stars of its own that you wouldn't have seen back in 2017 when I started this playthrough. So that was the first season that I started the playthrough on. So it's kind of a mix of old school stars with some new up and comers, and I thought that's kind of cool to play it out and see how far, see how it shapes out, a few years into the future. But I'm going to go through first off and give you my history, and one of the things that I've focused on before is it's kind of like a role-playing game aspect of Out of the Park baseball. But my reputation right now is at excellent. At one point last year, and it was right after I made that playoff run, I think is when it got the boost, but it went up to outstanding. And so I thought, wow, that's cool. I think that's the highest you can go, but I believe legendary is the highest you can go. So personally, I wouldn't mind improving my reputation to legendary. And if I do that, then I would be okay with putting the playthrough to rest. But I think it would take more than likely winning a World Series or making the World Series a couple times to get to that ranking. So we'll see how lucky I am with that. But I've managed for 13 years. I made the playoffs 3 years. So it's been kind of up and down. If you look at it, even the years where I didn't make the playoffs, I had a couple, like 2025, I had 89 wins, 82. The last few years, I've kind of been right around mediocre. And it was I just happened to have a good enough season in 2028 to win the division, and that helped me, and I got in the playoffs and got a good run going. But for the most part, I haven't been too successful I use a conservative play style. I have a few ground rules that I use just to give myself a challenge. I mainly do the trades unless I'm in a situation where, say this year when I was 68 and 94, or maybe this year when I was 71 and 91, if I've got some high contract players who I can get rid of uh, and work up a deal for a few prospects or maybe a 2 or 3 player package deal, I'll make that kind of trade then. But usually for me trading, I just offer a player and accept the best one-on-one trade the AI gives me. So that's one ground rule that I use. And I primarily like to build the team through the farm system. I like to build, uh, I like it when I make some good draft picks that develop. I like to focus on developing that. I control pretty much all the aspects of the game. The AI is not controlling my minors, for instance, the promotions and demotions. That's something I do, and I like to pay a lot of focus on that. And I like to um, scan the waiver wire periodically through the year or regularly through the year, and try to find some kind of a superstar in the making, or at least a starter in the making that another team's given up on. That's another thing I like to do. And the Rule 5 draft, although it's been a few years since I've had any success with the Rule 5 draft, I just haven't been too lucky with it. But that's the history that I've had. In terms of the league history, scroll down to the bottom here. So I started in 2017, and the dominant team in this playthrough by far has been the Tampa Bay Rays. They've been in 6 World Series. They were in the World Series a couple years ago. They've won 2. They've just been a really strong team in the American League. In the National League, it's been a little bit more of a mix, but Milwaukee has been strong. And right now, Miami, I think, is they're on the upswing. Miami started out having some really tough years, and I think they've built up their farm system now, and they've got some really good young talent. And last year they made it to the World Series, second time in this playthrough. But I think I'll probably see them again. And with them being in the East, it's going to be tough for me and the Phillies to overcome them in the East. And then Oakland won the World Series last year. They're another team that I think is really starting to develop. They've been in the playoffs 4 of the last 5 years, and they've got a lot of good young talent, especially in the pitching. And I think they primarily have built their team through the farm system. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can have a run like Tampa Bay and Milwaukee have had. And then see if there's anything else. Yeah, I wanted to go through, and this for anyone who watched my playthrough of the Phillies in 18, we didn't have, to my knowledge, we didn't have any award winners in the final, the recaps after the season. Starting out, let's see, the Gold Glove. I've got that great best gloves for now, but nobody showed up for the Phillies there. Top relievers that went to Zack Greinke for the A's. Like I said, he came over from the Cubs, but he's a pretty solid closer. In the National League, looks like it went to Mike Moore of Milwaukee, who's been around for a while with several teams, and I think that may have been his first. No, he's won the reliever award now 3 times, so he's had a pretty good career. Edwin Diaz finished 3rd, and I think he's on the way to the Hall of Fame in this playthrough. He's 1 more year, and looks like he's a free agent unless they haven't offered him extension. I think he's gonna get, if he lands another closer job with another team, he's gonna get 500 saves. I think he's a good bet to make the Hall of Fame. Nobody in the Platinum Stick Awards. Top rookie, we didn't get anyone there, but I don't think we even had really a rookie position player anyway. Manager of the Year went to the 2 teams who made it to the World Series. Cy Young went to Yannick Lopez, who had pitched for a long time with the Brewers and helped them get into all those playoff, helped them win their division several times and make the playoffs several times in this playthrough. He went to Chicago last year as a free agent, signed a pretty big contract with them, and had his career year, 20-1. He was one whip. He was a pretty easy pick for Cy Young in the American League. And then the National League went to Ian Plyler, who is just a dominating 5-star, got great stuff, 3 solid pitches. He's been dominating in this playthrough. He was up to 17 wins last year, but he's led the league in strikeouts, I think, probably 6 straight years or so, 5. And that was his 4th Cy Young award that he's won since he's been in the league. So he's with St. Louis. Unfortunately, I don't think St. Louis has a whole lot of talent around him, and they've struggled. They may have made the wild card last year. Let me see if that's true. Yeah, they were in the play-in game, but they lost to San Diego. But overall, they haven't had a great run in this playthrough. And then the MVP awards in the American League, that went to Alfredo Santana, which shouldn't be a big surprise. He's a 5-star player. He's another guy that Milwaukee let go in free agency, signed a big contract with the Yankees, had career year. And he's a solid player, one of the best players in this league right now. But he finally got his MVP. He's won the Rookie of the Year award prior to this, so he's having a great career. And if he stays healthy, he's listed as durable right now in injury proneness. This could be a future Hall of Famer in the making for sure. And then Justin Bellinger finished 3rd, so he had kind of a comeback year. His power hasn't left him, but the year before his average was kind of down. He was starting to show some slippage in his ratings, but if you look at his career, he's been so good. He has won the MVP 3 times, and he's at 460 home runs now. I think he's going to make 500, and he's just been a solid player throughout his career. Unfortunately, he may have gotten a little bit of a late start at 24, but he's never looked back since he's been in the league. Great career for him. And in the National League, it went to John Lanning. So Milwaukee just, man, they have so much talent, and they lose a guy like Santana, and the next year they make the playoffs, and they have the MVP. He had a sensational year, though, Lanning. 55 home runs, 121 RBIs, hit 300. So he's had a pretty decent career, but nothing like what he showed last year. It seems like he was traded from St. Louis to Milwaukee there, and that turned his season or his career around. He's been nothing but dominant for them since he went to them. And then Austin Murphy got 3rd. He is one of the better players in the league, and I guess I should say the Cardinals do have some other talent other than Plyler. He's had a good career, but he's never won that big award. He's a Platinum Stick award a few times, which is the same as Silver Slugger for the major leagues, but several times he's won the All-Star. He's 33, so I don't know how much. I don't know how many years he'll play. He's signed a few more years, though, under contract, but he's had a good career. So right now we're up to a couple milestones in the offseason that I'm going to go through. And first off is going to be the Hall of Fame voting, which just started, I think, today. And I've noticed there might be a little bit of a glitch. It seems like there are some players who have already been kind of lost their ballot privileges, however you say it, but they've come back. Like Rafael Soriano showed up for some reason, and he's been out of the league for a while. Romo, I think, has been out of the league for a while. Maybe he didn't retire until not 2023, so maybe it is time for him to go up. But now this is 2029. I think it's a 5-year wait. But regardless, there's some guys showing up here as a first-year ballot, and it's really not their first year. And I don't know if there's anyone, when I took a glance at this last night, I just don't know if there's anyone that I feel deserves a true Hall of Fame vote. Joey Batista, he's been out for a while. You see his career. His average just was never high enough, I don't think. He had, a few great power years, but overall, he ended his career in 2020 in this playthrough. Ryan Braun stayed through 2021, but didn't really have too many great years after, say, 2018, 2019. Those were his last productive years. But a first-timer this year is Madison Bumgarner. And he was really good. He played for some pretty poor Giants teams there for a while, like this year in 2020 when he was 9-16. He was still a good pitcher, but just on a bad team. Went to the Cubs, then the Mets, had 2 more good years, and then kind of fell off a lot in 2023. And just his career just kind of ended a little bit early in this playthrough. He finished short of 200 wins, 2,700 strikeouts. That's pretty good, but looking at his numbers, I just don't feel like he's a first ballot Hall of Famer in this playthrough. Eric Chavez, a few guys just showed up really late. Cueto, though, this is his legitimate first year on the ballot. Same situation as Bumgarner, 197 wins. His numbers overall are pretty solid, but I just don't think he's got enough to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in this playthrough. Chris Davis, his career in this playthrough ended in 2021. Fell short of 400 home runs, so he didn't keep his pace going up. Josh Donaldson, this is his first year on the ballot. Had a few decent years there in the playthrough. After, say, 2018, he was productive. His production fell off a little bit a few years later. And overall, pretty decent career, but again, not first ballot Hall of Fame. Let's see. Carlos Gonzalez, he's been out for a while, too. He ended his career in 2021. Zack Greinke, who has gotten some votes. This is his 5th year on the ballot. He's gotten some votes, but now with Bumgarner and Cueto in the mix, I don't know if he's a better pitcher than they are, really. I think he has the benefit of that one Cy Young award that they don't have. And then Felix Hernandez is the other guy who's gotten the most votes. He finished his career with 200 wins. Of the group that we've been looking at, he finished higher in strikeouts and wins above replacement. His averages for the Hall of Fame, they're kind of mixed. But his voting has gone up. I mean, he's right at the threshold last year, and mainly because it's just of the ballot that he's on. He's he's just really about the best choice of what's out there. And then the other one following him is Kenley Jansen, who didn't have the career in this playthrough. I kind of expected him to finish closer to 500 saves for his career. He fell short at 370. He still had a great career, though. He was the 3-time reliever of the year, and all 3 of those times came during my sim. Started in 2017. He was the reliever of the year that year. I think he deserves some votes because he was such a dominant closer, but not sure really if if those numbers qualify for the Hall of Fame. Here's another Nick Markakis. He's been retired for a while, 2020. So Andrew Miller, he's not really. He got a few votes last year. He turned into a closer in this playthrough starting in 2017, and the next 5 years he put up a few good save years there, but it's hard. It's great a pitcher as he was through these years and is now. His numbers don't necessarily translate, I guess, or they don't look as good when you get to voting in the Hall of Fame, but he really is a good pitcher. And gosh, Hunter Pence, he's been retired for a while. Buster Posey, I think this is his first year legitimately on the ballot. and great player. But I think his numbers fell a little bit short too. He actually was traded from San Francisco after 2020, played with a few teams before his career wrapped up. And then one of my favorite players, Jimmy Rollins. I've been voting for him every year because I think he was such a great player for the Phillies, and he has one MVP to his credit, and he was a big part of that run the Phillies had in the late 2000s, making it to the playoffs and winning the World Series. So I am going to vote for him. Call that a fan favorite vote if you want, but I am going to vote for him. But Joey Votto, who I wound up voting for, I think, last year, and it's mainly one of those things. I mean, I think Votto's a great hitter, but his career did not, in this playthrough, it didn't kind of sustain the pace that he was on for so many years. But I think I am going to vote for him because of the field that we're looking at here. And that's it. I don't see anybody else. So I'm going to give... So I'm gonna stick with how I've been voting here. Let me see if I can find it. So I am going to vote for Hernandez, and I'm going to vote for Jansen because I think they were two. When you consider the generation that they come from, I think they were two of the better players from their era, and that'll do it for my ballot. So I'm not feeling it. I mentioned the first year, I think, of my playthrough in the 18 series that I typically fill that ballot every year, but this year I haven't. Last couple years. So the next thing I got to look at is salary arbitration. I got a few tough decisions to make here. Dawson Bars is a guy I picked up, I think, in a trade because I was scrambling to get some pitching help, and he didn't really help. I think he got injured. He's out right now. He's out for 7 months, so I'm going to withdraw that and let him go. Mike Farr, he's now rated 3-star when my scout had him at one point rated 4, and he's turned into an injury-prone pitcher, unfortunately. I think he could probably, they're saying he's a back-end starter, which I've got several of those. I hate to pay him $6 million for being a back-end starter, so I'm gonna just offer him $5 million. I don't think that'll work, but okay. Let me try that again. And I'll keep him for one more year. He's only going to have one more year left anyway. Juan Rea. He's I like his personality class, but he's not really going to make it into that starting rotation, I don't think. After having a really good year a couple years ago, he's kind of slipped off the pace. He can pitch his way into emergency starter row. That's pretty much where my scout is. His movement's not that great. I think I'm going to let him go. That's a pretty tough decision, but he was actually when I had that playoff run, he was probably, until he got injured in the playoffs, he was my best pitcher in that whole run for me. Dave Schrimsher, I'm going to keep. He's coming off a good, solid year. He's a 3-star, but I think he's a better 3-star than some of the other guys. I think he's got a really good stuff rating. He's got 4 solid pitches. He's a lefty too, which I like. His profile, his scouting, it says he's a back-end starter, but you know, he could go for maybe 3rd if I needed him to, but I just don't want to pay him that much money. I'm going to go 65, $6.5 million, because that's a big jump. They're saying the team should offer him like twice that, so I don't think that's going to happen. Corey Line, I'm definitely happy with that $1.1 million offer. He took over my closer role after I got rid of my disgruntled closer, and he really did a good job. So hopefully his morale won't be too bad staying in the closer role. And I'm going to keep Kane. He had an off year, but he's capable of being a really good option in the pen. I'm happy with 1.4. Chris Hollis. This guy is a 4.5 star rated lefty bullpen guy, and he has led the league in appearances 4 out of the last 5 years. He's won the Reliever of the Year award once, but all that's great, but his personality is really not the best. His morale's good, but he is a good, dominant. The only problem is he's had 1 or 2 years where he slipped a little bit, but he can be pretty consistent overall. I just don't want to go $4 million. I think I'm going to go, or $5 million. I'll go 4. I think he's probably worth that. And then Sam McMillan, he's already disgruntled. I'm going to get rid of him. I've got some big catching holes to fill. Oviedo, he wants to be in the starting lineup, but he's just not really good enough. But he is definitely one of the team leaders. So I'm going to keep in. Josh Mast, wow, that's a big boost. So he's asking, I don't know what he's asking, but team is set to offer him 7. I'll go 6 and see. Oh, wrong field. I'm going to go $6 million and see if I can sneak by with that. And then Juan Elman, he wants to be in the starting lineup. He's had some injury issues, though, for me the last couple of years. I'm gonna take a chance on him, though, this year. I'll give him $4 million. If worst comes to worst, I might work up a trade with a couple of those between those two. But Mast is also listed as fragile, so if I lose one, it would be nice to have the other to step in. And then free agency, I'm letting Tyler Freeman go because he's been disgruntled. He wants the starting lineup and job, and I just don't have room for him. Ramos, Kanan Smith is going to be the big hit. He's a fan favorite, and my owner wants me to keep him, but his offensive numbers are just not there. He made the All-Star team in 2028, but he's just not. I just don't think he's producing enough for me to give him what he wants, and what he wants is a 5-year contract with an average of around 11, and I just don't think he's worth that. I don't think he'll play out a 5-year contract either. So that would be a tough hit to take too. One of the things I didn't look at is in my manager home screen, the goals that I've got set from a manager. He wants me to reach the playoffs, improve the team runs scored. Last year we were 11th. Signed Kanan Smith to an extension, and I'm not going to do that. The only way I would do that is maybe if we get further into free agency and no other team picks him up, and I can get him for quite a bit less. If I can get him for maybe 2 years or so at $6 million, $7 million, I might do it at that point if I haven't found another catcher. And then the owner wants me to reach the World Series by 2031, so I got 2 years to do that. If I look at my pitching staff right now, Mike Blotfeld had a great year, 20 wins. He's a 4-star potential pitcher. He's really come on strong last year. Kevin Gowdy, I don't know if he can duplicate the year he had last year. His ERA is high, but he did pick up 15 wins. So I got Mike Farr. I think can tell me if with a little bit more development might have a shot at that 5th starter role. Moya, Rhea, I've already decided to let go. Schremsher, he'll be a part of the rotation. And then Urrutia, who came on strong at the close of the year. He's got 4 pitches, a few of them pretty highly rated. His movement's not good, though, and usually if their movement's not good, that leads to a lot of home runs, but he had a solid year in AAA last year and a really good caught him up in September. He had a great run in September, so I'm hoping that he can be okay for me. And then the bullpen, I might have a couple of holes to fill, but not too many really in the bullpen. If I move Corey Line to closer, Ketchum comes back off the DL, and I've got a few guys I think that are starting to develop in AAA that might be able to step into the bullpen. For the lineup, my big players are Sean Barge, who has got 2 years behind him. He's been really solid. He's a 4.5-star player, great numbers up and down the line. He's developing some power now to go with everything else he's got, so he's a good player for me. Royce Lewis, who's signed to my highest price contract right now, $27.5 million. I got him through 2032. He is wrecked, and he has been really injury prone ever since I signed to that contract. So I don't know really what I'm going to get from him the next few years, but he's has been one of my better offensive players. And then Devers was a big free agent pick I had last year, mainly because I wanted to go for Santana, who I mentioned earlier, who won the MVP, but he was way out of my price range. And this guy, his price range was really good. So I picked him up, and he had a decent year for me. It was kind of a comeback year for him, considering what he'd done the year before. He's going to be around for 2 or 3 more years. Vargas is a young guy who's starting to develop into a solid player overall. He's good defensively in center. He's got some speed, and I like him at the top of the lineup. And then Ochoa, who I signed for 1 more year. He's got some great power. So-so in the outfield, but I might be looking at next year, might be his last year for me. So that's where the strengths are on the team. The weaknesses are going to be really, I want to make sure I get a catcher this offseason. And I didn't mention, but this guy is 3.5-star overall right now for my scout, but I really think he's going to develop further than that. He looked pretty good at times last year in limited play, but he's going to be my first baseman of the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the salary arbitration, see how those numbers stack up. And I think we're probably at it today. We are. And then we'll look at the free agent filings. So what happened here? Mike Farr got the $5 million that I offered. That's good. Juan Elman, he got his for Josh Mast, he got what he wanted. Dave Schrimsher, $12.5 million. What? Whew. I hope he plays for that next year. I hope he really puts together a great year, because that's really high. Oviedo got his 1.7 salary. Chris Hollis got the salary I offered, so wasn't too bad except for that Mast, how it turned out. Let me see where that leaves me. Man, that really cut into my budget room. So let's go to free agency and see what happens. Got a few international free agents. This guy's he's just a reliever. First baseman. I'm not seeing anything with that's really blowing me away there. But now, in terms of what the league says is the best free agents available, Bryce Harper, he's available. He had an okay year last year. His average in this playthrough has been pretty low for the last, like 7 years or so. He's getting close to 500 home runs, though. And he has a wins above replacement. It's pretty high for him for his career. Chris Kidd, great reliever. He's won the reliever of the year before. And he's a 5-star rated, but I don't want to spend that much on a closer. Pretty happy with going with Corey Line for another year. Edwin Diaz, he is going to be available. Chris James, who was having a tremendous start last year, pitched a no-hitter to start the year off, and he got injured, and that really hurt his season, he was probably on pace. He more than likely, if he kept it up, he would have been the Cy Young Award winner or runner-up. So what I've got to do now is the holes I've got to fill: catcher, and I would like to get a starter. Right now I don't have a number one ace type starter. That's what I really need, and I don't think I have the budget for it. I can probably get one, but not both. So let's see. I maybe have to finagle a trade of some kind. So for catchers, Blake Hunt, Canaan Smith, Omar Baldo. So Canaan Smith's really among the best available, if not the best available. And I really don't have anyone coming up in the minors in terms of catching for a while. I think there's this guy, Chris Andrus, might have a shot long term, but his position rating is really low. Offensively, he's been good, but I don't really know if he's going to turn into a full-time catcher. But I'd have to go probably to, there's a couple of kind of 1.5 star potentials in the rookie league, but that's about it. I don't really have any catching prospects at all. So I might have to wind up eating my words and going with Canaan Smith. I don't know if he's a better option than this guy, Blake Hunt, but he's wanting $18 million. No way. So yeah, I'll probably try to work up a contract for Smith, see if I can get him a little bit cheaper. And then starting pitchers, not a whole lot there either. It's possible that this guy he's a 3-star, but he's fragile. Lopez, who's getting up there in age, he's had a pretty decent career off and on. Dude, it's a slim pickings for sure. Kumar Rocker was a former Philly who's just been injury plagued almost his whole career. So I got some work to do, and that's what I'm going to be focused on. And when I get off here, I'm going to sim through a little bit of the off season and see what I can pick up. I might actually go through to winter meetings or beyond before the next episode, but I've got to get that catching situation ironed out and see if I can't improve my pitching staff, because as much as I like some of the performances I had last year, and that Shrimper contract, boy, that really hurt me, or the arbitration, I don't know if I can win the division or make the playoffs with this staff. Lotfeld would have to repeat his 20-win season. Shrimper would have to show even more development. And I just don't know if they're good enough, either one of them, to carry the staff, and that's what I need. So, we might even have to look at some trades here. They've listed him as a borderline starter. I wonder what he would look like if I set him to starting pitcher. 3-star potential. I'd rather keep him as a reliever right now. And then, yeah, nothing going on in Lehigh Valley. So I'll end the episode for now. I've got a lot of deliberation to do and some work on the free agency, but we'll pick it up a little bit later in the off season on the next episode. But thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I really appreciate that. Hopefully you get some value and enjoyment out of these playthroughs. I'm really having a fun time doing them. It really adds to my interest in the game even more, to be honest. And I'm really enjoying what I'm looking at with 19. It's been really fun to finally get my hands on it. But I'll see you guys next episode. Thanks for watching, and go play ball.